Welcome to My Boulevard Podcast, where we talk about everyday issues from a biblical and balanced perspective. I'm Dhati Lewis, and this season we're diving into fighting for the faith in today's culture, navigating deconstruction and reconstruction, and featuring the voices of poets, pastors, practitioners, and polymaths. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy today's episode.
What's up, everybody? We are here. This is My Boulevard Podcast. We are here with the Sho
Dhati
Baraka.
Lewis. We are here with this
excited.
man right here. This one.
We are so excited.
Ladies and
See,
gentlemen.
Today we're just going to talk about like the embodiment. Like the embodiment of My Boulevard, and we just like, when we think about kind of what this is, I do feel like to some degree there is this embodiment. And what I bring is both the beautifulness and the complicatedness of all of that. How does you just make up things and make up words? But it is all of those things that's together. Oftentimes when we get together, we've talked about like pastors, poets, practitioners, and polymaths. And and you are a polymath.
I'm a poet as well.
You are a poet.
Yes.
I just feel like I fit in that pastor, secondary practitioner. Maybe we need to come up with like a
Absolutely.
assessment for
Absolutely.
this, and we can kind of figure it out. But anyway, but as we were talking, we were just saying, like, instead of just talking just in it, we could just talk about just like even our different perspectives.
Yep.
Right. I think this is so many people have a certain perspective of me. People have a certain perspective of you. You have a certain perspective. I have a certain perspective. But there's also commonality, right? In that perspective, even though the different angles that we may be coming at. So let's talk about a little bit around kind of some of that, but bring some concreteness to it at the end. So general,
Yes.
abstract to the concrete.
Okay. So where we start in general?
Let's start with the general abstract.
Around the 4 Ps.
The 4 Ps.
Yeah. As you said, there needs to be some sort of assessment, some sort of learning system around this, because the bookends, according to the way we list them, the poets and the polymaths, seem to be people who, here's the general observation, are anti-institutionalist. Those are the people who tend to operate outside of institutions. They're more entrepreneurial to some degree, even though pastors and practitioners are entrepreneurial. But those people usually have to exist within institutions. So that's probably the greater generalization that I can come up with just from the words themselves.
Oh, I love that observation. And I've never really made that connection, but it makes all the sense in the world that the outside kind of coming in. Because when you talk about like pastors and practitioners, because sometimes like you don't want to be a part of the institution, but then you find yourself as pastors now that you are the leader of the institution.
Yes, you are.
And it's just kind of like, it's like, who do I blame? Right. It's sort of like when you become a homeowner, right?
Exactly.
You become a homeowner and you're looking for someone else.
Like, who's going to fix this roof?
Yeah. Like,
Oh, me? I got to do it?
and so that's part of why I wonder that there needs to be some research. I wonder why there's less and less people called to pastor right now. There's no real statistics that I can give you to that. If there's more or less, but it just feels like there's less people being called to the pastor.
Yeah, and if we're just going off of our own personal anecdotes, I would say it definitely felt like in the early 2010s, there was a excitement around pastoring because you were leading poets and polymaths, right? And practitioners. But then when 2020 happened and those poets and those polymaths and some practitioners started to criticize institutions and leave, then it left pastors in a place to where, are you here for the call or are you here for all the things that the call brings you? And I think it kind of exposed some, but it also brought a real weight to others.
Yeah, and I think that is because during that time it was also the big business, the big institution.
Yeah.
Bigger was better. Like the more people can rally, the mega church,
Right.
All those things were in, and now it's just like, like I'm disinterested. I don't want you're a part of what's keeping this, in your main maintenance of power, and you're trying to, keep power.
Yeah.
Is what's killing America, killing the world, killing
absolutely.
so on and so forth. And so I think that has,
and to some degree, you can say that power in some ways influence. I'll say influence. Influence is democratized through social media, so people don't have to necessarily go through a pastor or institution in order to like really get their voice out through podcasts, clips, reels, whatever. So it's like, why? It's almost like, why do I need to go through a church to get validation in order to be used and sent? And yeah.
And so here, let me put on my pastor institution hat.
Let's go
on, and let's start talking about this, because I have a problem with that.
You have a problem?
I have a problem with people think that they can kind of self-determine, self-appoint, self-anoint, and to say, like, without any type of formality, format, process. Yeah. And and so, because he says, coming to your point, he says, why do I need an institution to validate all, and I'm just like, no, I think you do. You do need
absolutely
an institution to some degree to do that.
Yeah.
And so this kind of goes to the whole thing, the conversation we was even having before this. There was years ago, I think decades ago, there was a thing that called cat and dog theology, right? And in cat and dog theology, basically, I may butcher it, but you can go look it up later. And I forgot even who was behind it. But the whole premise behind it could be all wrapped up in these two statements. It was, the one statement was, this is what a cat would say: you love me, you feed me, you take care of me, you keep me warm, I must be God. So basically the whole idea is, you do all those things for me as a cat, therefore I must be God, right? And obviously that's the negative approach. It's talking about a selfish, me-centered Christianity. But then the dog theology, which they say is about the glory of God, is you love me, you feed me, you take care of me, you must be God. And just the idea of a dog looks at that and they worship their master instead of a cat thinks their master is there for them. I'd said that to you at the beginning, and you just balked at that, and you was just like, it's probably, and now that you talk about it, is it because you're a polymath and a poet on the outside?
I think that's part of it. And the way that I even approach that kind of framework, because I don't see it as inherently negative. I see it as for the positive. So I said, it's obvious that whoever wrote that was a dog person, because although I'm not a cat person, nor am I a dog person, I see it as cats as being more the missionaries of the church, the people who can leave, go out, do good work, but come back, versus the dogs who are institutionalized in a sense. They have territory, they protect the territory, and they protect the owner, they hoard sometimes, which is not good. And cats wander, and sometimes they wander to the point to where they don't come back.
Yes. And while I do have some problems with dogs, I am 100% a dog lover, and I'm 100% a hater of cats. And do not send me any emails, but I do not like cats. And like, by the way, and I've brainwashed my kids not to like cats. Now, one of my kids do like cats, but I think it's because she wants to prove that she is not for what we are for sometimes. But but it is like, so the idea of dogs, and I love even what you was talking about, like protects institutions, all those things. And that's, a lot of times people would say that I'm more characterized, if there's a continuum, I'm more on the institutionalized side, and you're more of the, more along the opposite side,
more of the anarchy
side.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that has to do with why I like dogs more.
I think that's exactly why you like dogs.
Yeah.
It also, here's the thing, is like dogs, and this is probably very ignorant of me, because I don't have either, because I'm allergic to both. But it seems like dogs require a lot more maintenance too.
Oh, 100%.
And so if we take this analogy further, I think the one thing, it's not only that dogs require a lot of maintenance, they expect everybody else to need them and always like depend on them. And cats they operate within a freedom and a liberty that I don't think dogs like. Right. And so instead of using the analogy, pastors at times, they can hoard the institution and they expect people to need them in ways that I think sometimes the poets and the polymaths are like, no, I got the instruction. I'm good. Just free me. Just free me to go out and do the things that I can do. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to return home, but I'm not going to roam within the walls of this institution all the time.
See, but I think that's my issue. Like, the cats do nothing to protect the home. And I think that's the tension that oftentimes when you're empowering the cats to go,
they protect. So you can. We taking this analogy all the way. Yeah. So like mice or rats. Okay. So cats are primarily the ones who chase down rats and whatnot. And I think in some senses, what the cats do outside the house, even snakes, right, are more of the work of defending the faith outside of the institution than what maybe the pastors are doing for developing right theology. So it's more of like it's the missional work. It's the apologetic work that is being done outside the church that I think pastoral individuals have more of a tendency to say, what are we doing in an insular way? What are we doing to develop and equip people here? Yeah, that would be my.
I love that, and I thank you for giving me that perspective, because and I think that has been sometimes the tension between kind of pastors, whether it be parachurch or poets, or even when we talk about the Christian hip hop, right? In that time, it's like they're going out and it's like, oh, we're doing ministry out there, but then it's like, well, what are you helping at home? Yeah. And I feel like sometimes pastors would miss that, but they're seeing that, because using that analogy once again, it's the only thing I hated, because I'm not a big cat lover, but when there was rats, and I live in the city and there's constantly rats, I wish there were cats around. Yeah. And that's when you wish the cats were all around because of that rat problem. No, I think I think that's what I love about Boulevard and what we're trying to build is the ability to show the utility and the purpose that both are needed, and both serve different purposes and different functions. Yeah. And the problem is that we've oftentimes, it's like, oh, the cats, go hang around with just cats. Yeah. Other cats and the dogs, we just hang around with dogs, and we'll throw bombs at each other, and just talking about how both are ungrateful for the part that we do.
And here's, I can point out all the things that I think practitioners and pastors need to work on. But I'll tell you right now, I know the poets and the polymaths struggle to build community. I mean, there's maxims out there about wrangling cats, so I think with My Boulevard, the onus and the obstacle is on us to communicate clearly why these people on the bookends need community. Yeah. And how do we provide it in a way that is obvious to them to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, this is beneficial and this is necessary. And this is going to help me be more effective cat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I think the one thing we've seen is that the pastors and practitioners, for the most part, see the benefit of it. Yeah. And you've done a great job of developing pastors over the past 2 decades. However, usually what happens with artists or creatives and entrepreneurs, they want to do like an incubator. They'll take an institute or something. Just give me what I need now, and I'm out. And I'll never really return to reinvest into the community, because I think pastors struggle with this too, but you guys do a better job of hiding it. There feels like there's a scarcity mindset that operates within some of these individuals. And so therefore we become competitive, and we don't like to share resources, and so on and so forth.
We're taking a quick break in this episode to invite you to the MyBLVD Conference. Join us October the 17th through the 19th in exploring what it means to live local and to become responsible of where you live, work, and worship. Embrace the beauty and the diversity of your boulevard that God has called you to. This conference is a great opportunity to be equipped through contextualized content and to cultivate community. We'll have great speakers, breakout sessions, a live good culture show, and lots more. For more information and to register, visit myblvdcon.co. Now let's get back to our episode.
Right. And I think that's the very thing that's not only killing us as believers, it's killing us as a people in so many different ways, because you see about so many people like immigrants that have come over and have succeeded, in America. It is because one starts something, the others, they teach them,
Absolutely.
empower them, give them the trade secrets, and then send them off to do it in another place.
Absolutely.
And then also kind of give them a covering for a time where they're stacking their bread, they're getting the all the things that I think we don't do as Christians, we don't do as minorities, we don't do in so many different ways. I think is important. Right. It's like, so it's, to some degree, is how can you build that farm system, if we were to move from the cat and dog to more of the sports analogy, the pipeline or the farm systems that we can build, not just for the present, but also build for the future.
I love that immigrant observation, because the one thing that makes it's so cogent is that when people are immigrants and they come to a country, there is no hope that people outside are going to help them. So they feel it is upon ourselves to really do the job of catalyzing one another. I think when you are an African American, and this, I play a sociologist on TV. Sometimes I say things that make sense. I don't know if this will. I think African Americans are in a different bind in this country, and maybe even some of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, is because when you feel like you're owed something, then you oftentimes go to outside people for resources, and you're constantly trying to figure out, how do I get a seat at your table? How do I constantly get approval from this institution, et cetera, et cetera? And then when you do get a hold of those resources, there can be the tendency to not share those with other people, or people feel like, well, you either sold out and you went, and so then there's this disintegration, and it becomes all kinds of messy. And so there isn't the tendency to say, you know what, how do we continue to build our own institutions? Because there's no reason why we should have 6 small institutions that are doing the same things when none of them have more than 10 to 15 employers in the Christian space. Like it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But we do that. Somebody starts X ministry. Well, that's not a good, because there's an actual X ministry. Somebody starts, Y ministry, and they're doing Y thing. And then somebody just doesn't agree with everything that they're doing at Y ministry. So, you know what, I'm gonna start Y ministry too.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, come on, and so that's the issue. And I think there's a little bit more endurance in other spaces that we don't exhibit, and it kind of gets, it's hard, it's heartbreaking, but it is the way in which we operate. And so,
yeah, and I think that that's something that we have to overcome, especially if we talk about being the last generation, or what is the year 2100 looks like. I think we know that we're not the first people to do ministry, but it always feels like we're starting over.
I was about to say, you love that quote.
After every generation, right? And that's kind of the thing, is it's like, why does it feel like we're starting over? And it's like, how do we create? Because we're not leaving research where we stay in our anecdotes. It's just kind of like, how can we make it more popular, more prominent, so that we don't have to go.
How do you feel? So I know that everybody to some degree has this passion, but you really, really are passionate about making sure that the next generation is equipped, and that they don't have to go through some of the things you did. How would you feel if 10 years, 20 years from now, maybe like 20 years from now, you heard people saying like the things that you're saying, and you felt like would you feel like you failed, or would you feel like, what would you feel?
I mean, it's like, to me, I don't necessarily feel like we're failing, or that even the people of the past have felt. What I feel like it's sort of like a relay race. We're watching the Olympics, and we just got through that. The track and field. It's just like the third leg of the race that's hitting that curve. It has a different run than the straightaways, which had a different run than the people at the starting blocks. Right. Each one has to be trained uniquely and differently. And I just think that right now that we are in a position that is unique and different than the past. Like when I talk about being the last generation, it's understanding that we're standing on the shoulders of the previous generations, but it's also recognizing that as we're standing on the shoulders of previous generation, it's important for us to bring a different approach. Sort of like the stages of when they were in Israel, like after the 70 years of being like, there was different stages. Ezra went, then Nehemiah, so you had different people going, and each one had the different, like the first group went back, but there was like the temple. They made us focus on the temple, but the walls weren't built. Right. So there's still work to be done. There's still a lot of other things that still need to be done so that we can be complete, because we're vulnerable to everybody. So that's what makes Nehemiah has to go back. And so I think that's really important for us to stand. I have all the respect in the world. And, and growing up in the family that we grew up with, we had grand aunts that ran for president and things of that nature, to see that they are standing on the generation before that, and so many things. But I do feel like, on one end, because still to this day, and so many, whether it be artists or pastors, are still today, for whatever reason, just like I talked about, like I wasn't raised in the church, but the narrative of so many is, it's like, I got to go get trained. I want to get trained. I got to leave my context in order to get it. Regardless of if they just didn't look well, they didn't find the right people. Like, there's a lot of things that could have went on, but the story was too often I had to leave to go get trained, and then go get, and then have to recontextualize and when they try to come back. And so I'm just like, man, what does it look like for us to create and to expose and make accessible where it doesn't have to go on this mad hunt to do it? And even today, I just think that so many people like that I've talked to, they want to be a part of My Boulevard, but because of the scarcity mentality, it's like, man, I just don't have the capacity right now, because I got to go work at this organization, or I got to go do this because I don't have the resources to focus my time here, and I just feel like every generation is like, we're trying to figure out how to make the money, and that's one of the things I realized when I was at NAM. I was just like, man, like, I am no different than the previous one or two minorities. Yeah. That was the only VP, one of the only few minorities and I was like, I love my time at NAM. I love my time at Sin Network, but I was just like, Lord, I want to focus so that the next generation has options. And so I'm not saying that we don't no longer have to ever work at a NAM again, because I hope we continue to do that, but we also have the option that, of minority-led organizations in other places. Right. So that's my heart when I say that in my thought. So if that is whatever it is, I know, here's the thing, I know we're not going to finish the race. And when the race is finished is when we hear the trumpets.
Yep. Yeah. That's the one thing I realize, is there's always going to be incompleteness from the perspective of somebody. Like, oh, the previous generation didn't do this, and so it disappointed me. And I find it perfectly fine to feel that way, because as you kind of communicated, there's always going to be a new type of contextualization that's going to have to happen, and those people won't be trained. I think there are some ways in which we can minimize the gap in that, though, and I think My Boulevard is definitely doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, think about Jesus. Jesus built his whole ministry on the thought that the work is not done. Go. Continue the stuff that I've given you, go. So like, it's not a slight to understand like that we are a part of a larger family that goes back. When we talk about the Big C Church goes all the way back to Augustus, Augustine, right? Like all the way back to Paul, back to like it's the Big C. And so I just think that it is important for us to understand that we're building not to diminish the work that before, but it's to understand that the work that we have is so vital for this time, for such a time as this, and I think that that's important, So it's just all about perspectives and approaches. But speaking of perspectives, another perspective that you have that I think that has to do with your theology and like your worldview is your transition from a love for the Lakers and basketball to now a love for soccer.
I still love the Lakers. I don't love them as much as I used to, but I still love the
Are
Lakers.
you a fan? Are you a fan? Because let me just say, I define fandom that your emotions go up and down
Not really.
with that. See, that's what I'm saying. So you're no longer a fan.
Yeah, especially when LeBron came, I was like, I'm just.
So you see a Laker fan, what a Laker fan would do?
No, don't do that to me.
Here's what a Laker fan would do. A Laker fan would say, listen, all you LeBron fans, I embrace you as long as you're a part of this family. But just understand this. You are not the GM. You are a welcome addition, but you are not the center of attention.
Yeah. And I respect LeBron too. I think he is definitely
embrace that.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the greatest players to ever play. I don't know. Basketball. When Kobe left, I think my heart left with Kobe. I was like, and it wasn't actually when he left. My heart left when Dwight Howard and Steve Nash came. That was when I was like, you know what? I think this is
that was a hard time.
I think this is, but all that to say, yes, soccer has been. It crept into my life sometime around 2006 is when I first started watching soccer. Very casual. And then between 2006 and 2010 is when it's starting to heighten. And then around the World Cup in 2010 is when I really became a fan. That's when I started like getting all the channels that play soccer. I started following real clubs, knowing people's names. And by consequence, I had to stop following a sport as much. And I think football and basketball started to take a hit. And although the Lakers were winning titles around that time, it was soon after the title runs is when I started, as I said, like when Kobe started getting injured, and it was like, my heart can't be attached to this. And so, yes. So what is your?
But you have a whole. I remember you telling me you had a whole theology.
Well,
you have a whole.
It's more sociology,
like a sociology around this, and why being a soccer fan is you're more.
Yes, absolutely.
Like plugged in and astute in the world.
Absolutely. I believe, so it even goes as far as to not only does it make me a better student of the world, I think especially minority kids should not only play soccer, but they should stick to soccer throughout their young lives. One is because the more practical reason is there's more opportunities for work. Like you can play professionally, and when I say professionally, I don't mean it like NBA. You can play like professional basketball in Greece, and you're like, yeah, but nobody watches that. Like nobody watches you play ball in China. However, if you play soccer in different countries, everybody watches those sports, even in other countries. So there are like 6 prominent leagues across the world where you can play and be highly successful. And to think about all the people who spend their lives trying to make an NBA or an NFL roster only to just fizzle out, that if they put that energy towards soccer, amazing. So that's one. More job opportunities where you also make millions of dollars. The other thing is that, yes, I think it makes you a better student of the world, not only culturally, but it also politically. So one of the things I've learned is the more I watch soccer, teams are like nations, especially when you get into like the World Cup, they play a lot like their politics. And the style of play represents a lot of their culture. I mean, it's just the way that it is. Like you go to like some of your, like Brazil is a very flashy country. It's very, then you talk about some of your South American countries are very like tough and hard hitting. German is very kind of like robotic. Yeah. Spanish football is very, they call it tiki-taka. It's very technical, if you will. and France is just a bunch of imports from Africa. So colonization. And so you also get to learn language a little bit. Like if I hear somebody's name now because of soccer and watching all these people from different countries, it's like, oh yeah, he's probably from this Eastern European country, or he's from this particular, or that's Irish. And you just kind of you become a better understand. You learn history because they talk so much about history within the sport. I've learned so much about the world, and then you also just have greater points of hospitality and community with people in other countries because folks love soccer and Americans are but people from other countries love basketball. So that's somewhat of a benefit, is that people from other countries know more about our world than we know about their world. So yeah, I think that's those are just a few things that I would say. And yeah.
No, I mean, that's why I love it, and I love kind of your perspective.
That's so that's cat stuff.
That
right
is
there.
cat stuff.
That's
Very
cat
much
stuff.
cat stuff.
Dogs, just all they care about is football and basketball, and maybe baseball. But cats are like, let's get into this cricket. Let's get into this soccer.
Out there is out there eating the rats.
There we go. Yeah, see?
Out there eating the rats. That's as long as you keep eating the rats, I'm good. Killing the rats.
Yeah.
I don't know if cats actually eat rats, but they kill them.
Yeah, they definitely kill them. I don't
So
know.
I hope they don't eat them. That's
I wouldn't be shocked if they did.
yeah. But man, well, no, this is good. It's always good perspective, and this was just a good conversation because these are the types of conversations we have oftentimes when you're just. And you just kind of enlighten my world as I'm still trying to protect the institution. And
I love
you're
the
out
institution. I think you've helped me, and other people have helped me book it. So I know over the years, if people listen to like my Talented 10th album, I would talk disparagingly against Booker T. Washington. I would say there's more WB in me than there is Booker T. But I think because of my connection to you and seeing what life can be like when you are devoid of those things you talked about earlier, where the cats, the polymaths, and the poets need to be sent out like Paul was sent out, I think I've grown to appreciate the institution. What I don't love about the institution is when the pastors or the practitioners hoard it. And they don't create
You've
space.
mentioned that like 4 or 5 times.
There we go.
Today. So I think
That's the
everyone
word.
is
That's the
clear
word of the day.
on the word.
Don't hoard.
Do not hoard around Sho Baraka.
Do not hoard.
Yeah, I mean, because that is a trigger for him.
There we go. I won't roam too far. You don't hoard too much.
All right, that's it. Do not roam. We will not hoard.
There we
and
go.
we can all have.
That's a book.
That's it.
Those who roam and those who hoard.
Yep. See, all of that to that point. It took us however long it took to get to that point.
There you go.
So that we could come to the point of this podcast. And we hope you enjoyed it. It's been great. I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Right. I've been enlightened about the world of soccer. I'm
even
gonna
tell by
go out to get FIFA soccer today.
Oh yeah, but see, I used to be the man of FIFA. But I was gonna say, you can even tell by the way we dress, like institutional. Like, look at this. This is an institution man right here. Like, this is a dog. He's saying I'm uniformed. He's like, you gonna know who I belong to. You gonna know who the master is. Or the owner. I don't know.
Yeah,
but the cats are
owners.
like, look, we out here, y'all. Look, check my fur out.
Check my fur out.
And check out my fur and my mane.
Yes. So hey, and I'm with it. I'm okay. I got a few of these.
But it's good though. It looks good though, because the Boulevard merch looks good. Matter of fact, go get that. Well, I don't know if we're selling this, so I'll just be quiet.
If you want to buy it, we'll make some.
Okay. There you go.
All right, until next time, we appreciate you. There's another episode. This is My Boulevard. Appreciate y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the My Boulevard podcast. And be sure to rate, share, and subscribe. And don't miss the My Boulevard Conference to be equipped to make disciples where you live, work, and worship. We're only able to continue equipping leaders through contextualized content and cultivated community because of the generosity of supporters like you. To give and to help fuel the mission, visit us at MyBLVD.co.